From the next case, Muroff versus, who's the first defendant? Heritage and Memorial Hospital. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Good afternoon. May it please the court. My name is Jacqueline Mandel. I represent all of the defendants' appellants in this case. This appeal today is about proximate cause. There are two separate claims for two separate periods of time, and with the court's permission, I'd like to address them each individually to demonstrate why the plaintiff's proof was insufficient to raise a triable issue of fact on proximate cause for both segments of the claim. First, we're dealing with, chronologically, the alleged 6-month delay in performing the surgery. So this happens between April 30, 2015, and the day of the surgery, which is October 19, 2015. Yes, because I imagine that you're going to ask me this, the parties' experts disagree on the stage of the cancer. There's no question about that. However, it's a distinction without a difference in this particular case because it all leads to the same conclusion. Even just for a moment, putting my own experts' opinions aside on the staging of the cancer, it's the plaintiff's own proof that negates the possibility of proximate cause when it comes to this first segment of the treatment that's at issue, because the plaintiff's own experts told us that despite the passage of the 6 months, on the day of the surgery, the cancer was stage 1A, and the patient had a greater than 93% chance of survival on the date of the surgery. And what that means is that the cancer could not have, by the plaintiff's own proof, could not have progressed over those 6 months, and the life expectancy could not have been diminished over those 6 months. So at the very least, the claims that pertain to the treatment prior to the surgery need to be dismissed because in the absence of a causal connection between the departure and the harm, there cannot be actionable negligence as a matter of law. Moving on to the second part, which is the surgery itself. There's a claim that the defendant surgeon didn't remove a mass and that there was then a delay for a few months in diagnosing her with cancer. And here, I'd like to refer this court actually to its decision issued just 2 months ago. It's called Foster versus Kassab. It's so new, it doesn't even have an official site yet. It's slip opinion 00007 from January of 2022. It is cited in my brief.
Counsel, I have a question.
Yes, Your Honor.
So when you said we're talking about the surgery that was performed on October 19, 2015?
Correct, Your Honor.
Right, and then 6 months later, I mean, that surgery, everything looked good, right? The way you're saying at that point, it was stage 1?
Well, I'm saying that you said 6 months later, Your Honor.
Well, before I even say 6 months, but that surgery, what happened was or the plaintiff's expert saying that it was stage 1, right? Is that what you were saying?
That's
right?
Yes, Your Honor. That's
but did she not? Did the plaintiff go back and complain to Dr. Slarkin on November 9, 2015, that she still felt a nodule in her left breast?
She did.
So what's the response to that? Because then he instructed the person, the decedent, to go back for 3 months later. So
that's right.
So it's stage 1, but a lot can happen in that 3-month period, no?
So that's exactly the point, Your Honor. We're not arguing whether or not there was a question of fact on departure. This whole thing is about proximate cause. What's the consequence of the departures that they allege? And in this Foster case, which if I put my glasses on, I can actually quote the important parts. Okay, this court held, and that was also, Foster, by the way, is a failure to diagnose gastric cancer. So this is breast cancer, this is gastric cancer, but the point is that this court found that the plaintiff's proof was insufficient on proximate cause as a matter of law, holding that a delayed diagnosis, even if it is a deviation, is insufficient standing alone to establish proximate cause. And what was wrong in the Foster case? The quote is, the oncologist offered no assessment of the stage of the cancer at the first consultation It's stage when it was discovered, and if there were a difference in those two stages, the resultant diminution in life expectancy or other injury. That's exactly this case, Your
Who was
Honor.
the panel on that case?
None of you. None of you. Justice Gish was presiding, and Justices Singh, Mendez, Shulman, and Pitt were the judges on that case.
Counsel, I understand your position that the plaintiffs, that they took the position that it was stage 1 cancer at the time of the operation, but you don't agree with that position, correct?
My experts say that she was stage 4 from the minute that she walked in the door. But no matter which way you analyze it, if
There's a big difference between stage 1 and stage 4.
There's a huge-
There's like a million miles of difference.
There is. I completely agree with you, Your Honor.
And so somebody who's in stage 4, you find another tumor anywhere of any kind, that is like a huge red flag.
Your Honor,
A huge red flag.
Stage-
That means immediate action.
stage 4 is the final stage of cancer. It's terminal.
I know.
Okay. So either way, if you believe my experts that when she walked into the hospital in April and she was terminal stage 4, my experts said the prognosis isn't different, the treatment options aren't different, the
Except
survival
that
isn't
even
different.
people who have stage 4 have a chance at prolonged life. And nobody should shortchange that, right? So that if I have stage 4 whatever, I should be able to live as many more months as possible without that being impeded by improper medical advice, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that would be a critical point in this case if that was the plaintiff's claim, but it's not. They're not claiming that. I cited it for you in my brief. Plaintiff's counsel during the argument said that she was curable. This cancer should have been cured. There's no question stage 4 cancer is not curable. This is not a Polanco case for that reason. If I can go back to the part about what happened after the surgery, Your Honor, I see my red light is on. I'll be
Go
very-
right ahead. I'm not stopping you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So going back to the quote that I said about the oncologist failing to offer any assessment of the stage of the cancer or its stage when it was discovered. So we have the surgery that's performed on October 19, 2015, which the plaintiff's expert says is stage 1. And then in February, only 4 months later, she has a positive biopsy. What's the stage? The plaintiff's experts don't tell us, exactly as in Foster. They don't tell us what happens in that interval. Did she go from stage 1A to 2? And if she did, what's the consequence? We don't know. Did she go from stage 1A to stage 3? And if she did, what's the consequence? We don't know. And that's what makes it conclusory, and that's what makes this case the exact same as the Foster case. It's conclusory. And then in February of 2016, when she has that positive biopsy, she terminates her treatment with us and has no more treatment until 5 months down the road, when she is beyond our control. We have no say in whether or not she's having surgery or chemotherapy or tamoxifen or anything that goes on. And the plaintiff's experts won't tell us what was the progression of the cancer. And that is why Foster is on all fours with what this case is about. And that's the reason that the second part of the case should have been dismissed. At the very least, the first part, where the plaintiff's own experts tell us that she was stage 1A on the day of the surgery, there can't possibly be proximate cause. And for the second half,
Are we not to consider that your people say that's not accurate?
we can consider it. The experts disagree.
So if I'm to consider that your people say it's stage 4, can I not analyze what was done for her based on your assessment? Because it was your doctors who were treating her. So should I not analyze this based on what they believed they were dealing with?
Well,
I mean, it seems to me that I should be considering the treatment of your doctors based on their assessment that they are dealing with somebody who is dying,
there's,
right?
Your Honor, I'm not disagreeing with the point that you're making. What I'm saying to you is that in the normal circumstance where experts disagree, it matters, but here there's no difference because at the end of it all, my experts say it wouldn't have made a difference because she was so advanced, and their experts say she was so early that it didn't make a difference. So even though they are at diametrically...
But you're not saying in that argument that if I ignore their assessment that it was stage 1 and agree with your doctors that it was stage 4, and then analyze what they did on the basis of what they believed, because they were the ones treating her. So quite frankly, for that purpose, I don't care what his doctor says. I care what your doctor says, because it is what your doctor thinks that dictates what they should do for this patient, no?
Well, we had the burden of proof on summary judgment for sure. And
I'm talking doctor to patient. All as a doctor and patient relationship, all that I need to concern myself with in evaluating whether your doctors did the right thing by this patient is what they believed, not what some other doctor says later in a lawsuit. I'm concerned with what your doctors believed and the treatment they gave this patient based on their expertise and their knowledge. Is that not what I am supposed to be considering?
well, I would love for you to consider my experts as the ones who are right.
Okay.
And my experts said, both of them said that my clients did the right thing.
Okay.
That's what they said. And their
But they're
experts,
saying that based on she was going to die anyway?
well, no, they said that Dr. Sclaren, the oncologist, got the patient to the breast surgeon in a timely manner, which the plaintiff's experts don't disagree with, right? They
Right.
had a window and
Right.
she met the window. And my experts said that the surgeons did the right thing in the surgery. They got all of that residual breast tissue out. That's proven in pathology. They had, before the surgery, 3 weeks before the surgery, there was an entirely negative breast MRI, nothing suspicious in there.
Right.
The pathology comes back negative, nothing suspicious in there. And so my experts say, you can only remove what you can see and you can feel. There's a dispute about whether my doctors, there's competing experts on the departure, which is why when I opened, I said, this appeal is about proximate cause. It doesn't change. If she's stage 4, and they disagree with that, but if she's stage 4, she's terminal, and it doesn't change anything. If she's stage 1A, then the delay in getting her to that surgery didn't change anything.
Okay. I would suggest to your doctors and medical malpractice in particular, with the advances we have in medicine, stage 4 does not mean you die tomorrow.
There's no question.
So that the medical advice we receive can either keep us with our family for a year, 2, 3 years more. That is priceless.
Your Honor,
Okay?
she did.
So this concept of, oh, you're stage 4, so it doesn't matter.
No.
That kind of talk must leave our jurisprudence.
Your Honor, I think that's respectfully an unfair characterization of what went on
I'm
here.
just saying, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm clarifying for the record that stage 4 doesn't mean a death sentence tomorrow.
It doesn't.
And life can be prolonged. And every effort that can be utilized to prolong life should be expended.
We completely agree, Your Honor.
I
And
know you do.
well, no, I really do.
I know you
I really
do.
do. I do med mal. This is what I do, and I agree. And in fairness, she did live another 3 years from the day that she walked into the hospital.
Right.
And she did get surgery.
Counsel, if I could just ask you another question, I know you're way over time, but
I am over time.
when did the defendant doctors conclude that she was stage 4?
The defendant doctors?
The doctors. When did the doctors conclude that she was stage 4?
The defendant doctors did not conclude that she was stage 4.
Ever, right?
Never. never. That develops based on what we see
Afterwards.
in the subsequent information that was happening after the patient left our hospital.
Okay.
They did not conclude that. If they had concluded definitively that she was stage 4, they might not have done the surgery.
Right, because she
Right?
would
But
have qualified.
they gave her to Justice Manzanet Daniels' point, they gave her that opportunity. Right? She got the benefit of the doubt, despite all of her radiology studies that showed that there were suspicious metastatic things going on in the liver and suspicious things going on in the spleen, and despite the 4 years before of all this badly treated cancer, she got the benefit of the doubt, and she went to surgery, and she had reconstruction, and she had follow-up. And this went the way that it went anyway. And just to be 100% clear, Your Honor, there is no circumstance in which I am saying that a patient with stage 4 cancer is told, oh, well, so what, go home, you're going to die.
No, I certainly didn't intend to.
I don't want you to
imply
think that I'm thinking.
that. Not at all, okay? Not
you.
at all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Counsel.
May it please the court, Guy Regev for the respondent. If I
Also,
may-
can you just address your opponent's argument that your own position that she had stage 1 cancer at the time of the surgery defeats your claim?
Sure. Plaintiff's or respondent's expert opined 2 primary things with regards to proximate cause in this case. The primary thing that was argued was that at some point between the types of scans that were done at Sloan Kettering and before to evaluate whether or not there was stage 4 and did not show there was any metastasis or stage 4 at that point. Between that point and the entire time she is being managed at Sloan Kettering, which again, plaintiff alleged was a delay, and that's not something that's being argued about today. Throughout the entire time that lasted almost 9 months, at some point throughout that time period, and this is stated explicitly in the affirmations, her initial stage 1 cancer progressed to stage 4.
So wait, because my colleague asked you a very direct question, and you haven't answered it. So why don't you try that again, Judge Rodriguez?
Opposing counsel's view is that your position that your client had stage 1 cancer at the time of the surgery defeats your claim. How do you respond to that?
So again, so number 1, that is a mischaracterization of plaintiff's position, number 1.
So you weren't asserting that at the first instance that your client was not suffering from anything over a stage 1 cancer?
Absolutely. You're correct about that. And in fact, what counsel is referring to is a statement made in plaintiff's respondent's expert affirmation, which states that according to all the information from all the tests, and I can go over each one of them, that was available at the time of the surgery of October 19th, 2015, according to all that information, all could be concluded is that at that point, according to that information, it was stage 1. However, in order to, and this goes into the topic of staging of cancer, in order to confirm exactly what stage a cancer is, there are 1 or 2 of the best methods, sort of like PCR testing and rapid testing with coronavirus.
Well, I would imagine that after the first cancer, that the tumor that was removed was biopsied, correct?
And when you say that is correct, the first
Okay.
biopsy, I think that is most relevant to the cancer we're discussing here, was in February of 2015. There was a biopsy. The biopsy, however, does not tell you what the staging is, meaning did it go to other places, because it takes a small sample from that area. In order to get the staging right, the best test that is done is called a PET scan. PET scan is, if I may, sugar type of solution is injected. Cancer cells tend to like
Counsel,
sugar. Yes, I apologize.
We have many cases like this,
Yes.
so we know what a PET scan is.
Okay, so the PET scan is the best type of test. We know she had one on March 27th, 2015, that was interpreted by the defendants themselves not to represent any metastasis, meaning any advanced stage of cancer. Her cancer was determined to be localized. This is so crucial because regardless of whatever talk we have of the experts here, I know the expert opinions on the defendant's side, it's not perhaps my position to opine on your opinion here, but you were spot on with the way you interpreted it. How can you stand here arguing about what your experts say when the defendants themselves and all of their depositions and obviously all the notes, we have dozens of top experts from Sloan Kettering saying there's no advanced cancer here prior to that surgery. That's the reason they operated. If she did have stage 4 cancer, they all testified they would not even operate at that point. So the reliability of the defendant's experts here is below any sort of acceptable standard, in my opinion. Now, I will just point out, based on a question I heard earlier, if it's okay, that there are 2, even 3 main periods that we should think about here. And one of them is the time that plaintiff gets to Sloan Kettering and is being worked up for the cancer. And that time period, according to the defendants, should have taken 12 weeks from that time to surgery. They broke that, and she was evaluated for a whole 6 months. That's an initial 6-month period. And where our expert's position is that that period of time was a significant delay that led to a worsened outcome here. So that's number one. And then we have the period from the time that she has that surgery, which failed to remove the tumor, which is obviously an egregious act there, and extending to the time that they finally decided to listen to her complaints and test that tumor. And that's an additional 4 months. And from that time period, we know that now it takes another 12 weeks to try to get to a surgery again, because that's the type of cue, which would explain a significant time of that period that she had to get to another healthcare provider that she could trust after this horrible thing happened to her, and before she left the 2 orphans, etc.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any questions? Thank you. Counsel, you have 2 minutes.
I might have misheard, but I actually thought that I heard respondents' counsel say that they're not arguing about the 6-month delay before the surgery. I'm not sure if the court heard that. I thought that's what I heard. But just going to the expert opinions, page 1778 of the record is the plaintiff's expert, the 2 expert affirmations that the plaintiff submitted, with the exception of one is a surgeon and one is an oncologist. They're verbatim, so I'm only looking at the one of them. And plaintiff's counsel's attempt to reinterpret and translate what his expert said requires us to look at what the expert actually said. So if we go to page 1778, the expert explains to us what the staging system is for breast cancer and goes into detail about what it means and how they do it. And on page 1779, he goes 1 stage at a time and tells us very specifically, stage 1 is this, stage 2 is this, and gives us all of the criteria associated with all of that. And what that leads to is paragraph 129 on page 1780, which says, taken together, meaning everything that he just said in the last pages, Ms. Kujelski would be categorized as stage 1A on October 19, 2015, with a 5-year survival rate of more than 93%. There's nothing to be interpreted there. That's what he's saying, and I don't...
I don't have the affidavit in front of me. Does the affidavit go on to say at what point this expert believes she reaches stage 4?
It never happens, Your Honor. Paragraph 150...
Because I mean, it's a pretty fast advancing cancer.
If he's right...
If he's right that in 2015 it's stage 1, and less than a year and a half later...
Way less than that, Your Honor.
Right?
If he's right that in October of 2015, she's stage 1A, in March, she's got the positive scans where she's got lymph nodes. In July, she's having that surgery of 2016. We're talking about 4 or 5 months, but they don't tell us the answer to that question. If you look at page 157 of the, paragraph 157 of the expert's affidavit, which is at 1789 of the record. The experts, both experts tell us this, the other one's on 1820, is the other page in the record. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, this patient's initially localized breast cancer progressed into stage 4 during the period between her initial April 30, 2015 presentation, which is the day she walks into our hospital, and the surgery that she has 14 months later on July 6, 2016.
But in between those two time periods, there are exams, are there not?
And he tells us nothing. That's the whole
And
point.
so aren't there scans done in between? A scan should have picked this up.
There was the surgery that was done. There were the pre-op scans, right, which
Right.
I told you about that showed that they were suspicious for disease in the spleen. Nothing was definitive. Suspicious in the spleen, suspicious in the liver. There was the breast MRI done 3 weeks before the surgery in September of 2015, which was totally
By
negative.
then it's too late.
Then, but it was negative. Then there was the breast surgery, the completion mastectomies, not a microscopic scintilla of cancer in that residual breast tissue. The breast MRI is negative, and the pathology from the completion mastectomies are negative.
But is there an additional PET scan done?
No,
Because the fact that there's no additional growth in the breast does not mean that there's not additional cancerous growth metastasizing elsewhere.
right. So what was going on at the time was, so she comes in April, and they review her outside studies. She had had imaging studies in other institutions. Memorial does its own internal review.
Right.
There's nothing conclusive about metastatic disease. They refer her to the surgeon. She gets to the surgeon on June 11th, and she says, I want to consider reconstruction. So then 6 days later, she's in the hands of the plastic surgeon so they can talk about a complicated reconstruction,
Right.
given all her prior surgeries. She has to go through various tests and evaluations to figure out, does she have blood vessels? Does she have skin? What can we do with her? And that's all completed in July and August, trying to figure out what we're going to do with the breast surgery. In the middle of September of 2015, she says, okay, I'll have the surgery. The next week, she goes for that breast MRI, which is negative. And 3 weeks later, she's in the operating room. And she has the surgery, and path from the surgery is negative. And yes, then she comes out and she says, I still feel something. And they're going to evaluate her in 3 months because she's just had all of this massive surgery. They know they have a negative MRI. They know they have negative pathology.
But at that point, when she says, I feel something, how long had it been since her last PET scan? Because we know that's the gold standard, right? That's going to pick up anything.
I don't know that it's a PET scan that's gold standard or if it's MRI that's
Oh,
gold
no,
standard.
MRI is nowhere near PET scan. So when was the last PET scan?
In March of 2015, right before she came to see us.
So is there any reason why a PET scan wasn't done at that time?